Okay, in this video, I am going to fill out the unit circle, and I'm going to do it rather quickly. So this is the method you would want to use if you are taking the unit circle quiz and want to get it done in time, which you definitely want to do. You're only going to have like 10 or 15 minutes to do the quiz. You're going to see that once I get going here, it's only going to take me like 5 minutes to do all this. Plus, I'm explaining things as I go, so that's going to slow me down a bit. Also, whenever you're using the unit circle to try to solve trig problems, which you'll see in the video after this, you'll want to use this method just to pick out the pieces that you need from the unit circle. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start off at 0. That's the standard position, and I know that if I went full circle here, I'd hit 2 pi. Half of that is pi. Half of pi is pi over 2. And then half of pi over 2 is my 45-degree angle pi over 4. And then I'm just going to count by pi over 4 all the way around. So 1 pi over 4 is here, 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2. I get 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4 is pi, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4 reduces to 3 pi over 2. And then 7 pi over 4 is the last one here. That's all the pi over 4 is figured out. If I start off at pi, cut it up into 6 pieces, I'd have pi over 6. So I'm going to count by pi over 6's. Pi over 6 plus pi over 6, so this is going to be 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3. 3 pi over 6 is already filled out, that's pi over 2. 4 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi over 3. And then 5 pi over 6 is here. And then 6 pi over 6 is the same thing as pi. 7 pi over 6. 8 pi over 6, which is 4 pi over 3. 9 pi over 6 is 3 pi over 2. 10 pi over 6 is 5 pi over 3. And then finally 11 pi over 6. So that's all the angles done. Did that pretty quickly. Okay, so little side note here. All of the coordinates here are either going to be 0 and 1, or it's going to be one of 3 fractions. So all these fractions are divided by 2, and then the top numbers go 1, 2, 3, except they all have radicals around them. However, if you take the square root of 1, that's just equal to 1, so you don't need the radical around the 1. So these are your 3 fractions. I'm going to do the cardinal points first. Cardinal points, if we go straight left, right, up, or down. If I go right from the origin, I've traveled the radius to the right, which is just 1. So 1, 0 is on the right. If I travel straight to the left, I would have a negative 1 for the x-coordinate. Have not gone up or down at all, so it's negative 1, 0. If I go straight up, that's 0, 1. And then if I go straight down, my y-coordinate is now negative. So it's 0, negative 1. So from these 5 possibilities for the coordinates, I have taken care of the 0 and the 1. So I can cross those out. Everything else is going to involve these 3 fractions. Well, if we look at the pi over 6 here, in order to get to this coordinate, I have to travel further horizontally than I do vertically. And in fact, this is the furthest horizontally I can get from the origin for one of the 3 fractions, and it's the closest to the origin I can get in terms of y vertically. So my x-coordinate, the horizontal distance, has to be the biggest of these 3 fractions. And the biggest of the 3 fractions is root 3 over 2. And then my y-coordinate has to be the smallest of the 3 fractions. And the smallest of the 3 fractions is 1/2. So there's my coordinate, root 3 over 2, and then 1/2. And then if I look at the pi over 3 here, everything's been flipped. I'm now the furthest away I can get in the y direction, so the furthest I can get is the root 3 over 2 from those 3 fractions. That's the biggest fraction. And then my horizontal distance is the closest to the origin, and the smallest fraction was 1/2. Finally, I've got the middle here. That's the pi over 4, and the middle of these 3 fractions was root 2 over 2. So that is going to be the same for both. It's the middle in terms of x, and it's the middle in terms of y. So I get root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. And then once I have that first quadrant filled out, I can just go through and I can just start copying everything over into the other quadrants, just making sure that I'm putting the right sign for that quadrant. So in the second quadrant, x is negative, so I want to make sure that I'm making all the x's negative over here. And then the bottom one here, the coordinate that's closest to the x-axis, that's going to be root 3 over 2, 1/2. And then second quadrant means the x is negative. So just put a negative in front of that. And then I can go down here, and I'm copying, I'm reflecting across the x-axis. So the closest to the x-axis is the root 3 over 2 and 1/2. I'm just going to go ahead and do that for both of these guys here. You know what? I'm just gonna fill in the numbers, then I'll fix all the signs afterwards. So the middle ones from the x-axis is root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. And then the furthest from the x-axis is 1/2 and root 3 over 2. And then now I'm going to fix all the signs. So if I'm in the third quadrant, everything's negative. So I just put a negative in front of x's and the y's. And then if I'm in the fourth quadrant, x is positive, but y is negative. So I just have to make those y's negative. And that's it. That is the unit circle filled out.